Well, hello again and welcome in. Wherever you are today and wherever you're listening from, I'm so happy to have you over to feast upon God's Word together. Get your plate ready today and take a seat. It's the 44, which is Matthew 4:4. Man cannot live on bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. Let's eat. I'm your host, Jed Yancey, still, and welcome in today to episode 19 of season 4 of the 44. And really here today, I just want to talk through something that's been on my mind here this week, and let's get some good eats, I hope, from it here today. And what I hope here is that by the end of all of this today, that it will either reaffirm for you what you are already doing, or maybe on the flip side, it will convict you to the point of recommitting to all that God wants for you and for your life. Now, you probably noticed the title of today's episode, Taking Back Sunday, so as not to be confused with the early 2000s punk rock band that was popular way back when I was in high school. Some of you listening will know what I'm talking about right there, but just figured that might be my chance to get back at some of you older folks who always mention these old bands and old shows that I've never heard of because I'm too young, right? Anyways, today's title and topic is a really big deal these days, right? Because more and more, I've come across people in conversations about where they go to church, if they go to church, all things included in that conversation. And what I've come to notice from a lot of those discussions here recently is that somehow, in some way, this day has been hijacked and turned into a day that it ought not to be. And so what I want to explore a little bit today is how, in a world that's busier than ever with schedules packed and distractions endless, how do we take back this day, this Sunday, as a day to honor God, to worship God, to set our focus back on Him, which is exactly where it should be and exactly what He desires from us. In a way, really, from all the other things that for some reason these days and in the world we're living in feel like they're a lot more important. And so to start here, I'll tell you that this has long been on my list of episodes to study and to write and to record. And then I came across a Facebook post that a buddy of mine shared that read this way. Not sure exactly where it originated, but it sure did nudge me in the direction of this week's episode. And so I'm going to read to you the post from Facebook, and then we'll talk some more on this, expand on it a little bit. Here we go. Sundays used to be sacred, but now it's soccer, sleep, and seafood boils. We are raising a generation that knows how to clock in on Monday, but doesn't know how to bow down on Sunday. We pack stadiums, we fill brunch spots and chase self-care, and then wonder why our souls stay empty and our homes stay chaotic. Let's be clear. God isn't mad you went to the beach. He's grieved you stopped coming to the altar. You've replaced sanctuary with scenery. The problem is the beach can't bless you, the grill can't heal you, and no vacation can restore what only worship can. Sunday is not a break from your week, it's the foundation of it. Keep ignoring it and watch everything else continue to fall apart. So maybe you saw this as well floating around somewhere, and my first reaction is, wow, very well said and well put. I mean, how real is that? I mean, first and foremost, let's talk through, I guess, why Sundays are even in a place of needing to take back. How is it that it's lost its sacred place in our lives? And a lot of that is included in that post, but I would say it goes beyond the few reasons listed in what I just read to you, doesn't it? Because there's so much more out there in our world today to where Sunday has literally just become another day of the week to so many. You've got kids' games and tournaments and shopping and social events, which many of them unfortunately fall on a Friday or Saturday, but we got to have a recovery day, right, from all of that. Like Sunday has become the recovery day, the catch-up day from me going so hard on all the other days where I've crammed and crammed and crammed with all these other things that it's turned into, as was mentioned in the post, the break from the week rather than the very foundation of the week. I mean, just to lean on this even more, let's not forget how hard it is for us to just be present in this day and age where the power of the phone and emails and notifications and TV, they interrupt, they distract us away from what's important. Like a part of all of this really has nothing to do with us. It's just what we're surrounded by. I mean, our culture sure doesn't make taking back Sundays easy because nowadays nothing stops. Stores never close, work never ends, kids' games and tournaments are scheduled on Sundays as though the one more game is really super important anyways, which is another thing in and of itself. Because to the kids, those games are kind of whatever, but to the parents, every Sunday is a World Cup or a World Series or a Super Bowl Sunday to them. And so it's pretty brutal out there, isn't it? In regards to what we're surrounded by. And here's the worst news of all, is that it is not slowing down. And you know, all of everything that we could include here that we're surrounded by is so eerily similar to situations in the Old Testament we read of where God commanded and desired that the people keep one day sacred, keep it holy, not just as a day of rest, but a day of worship, a day of refocusing back on Him, a day of bowing down to Him, a day that was foundational to not just starting the week to start it, but like to move away from starting my week on an empty tank spiritually. And so y'all that have been 44 listeners for a while, you know I love me some Nehemiah. And while I won't go through and flesh all of this out, what you find there is in the book of Nehemiah is the people's failure to keep the Sabbath contributed to several factors, and you'll never guess what those factors were. Here you go. Influence of the cultures they were surrounded by, economic pressures as he finds them working and profiting, which was likely became more important and more of a priority than keeping this day holy. We also find in there in the book of Nehemiah, there's just outright some spiritual apathy, some neglect. I mean, it just had become the new norm. And likely that stemmed from just a failure to sustain true devotion, which is an important piece of where we're going to go today. So I'm just giving you that example to show you that we aren't here today dealing with anything new in taking back Sunday. Like even in the book of Nehemiah, in regards to the Sabbath day, after recommitting to keeping the Sabbath, amongst other things, it didn't take all that long before those people were right back in the same situation in chapter 13 at the end of the book. Nehemiah returns and he finds they've gone right back to doing what they used to do. And it says in there that Nehemiah made a big deal of it because it was a big deal. He admonished them, he reprimanded them. Chapter 13, verse 17, he takes some other actions that you can read of. So while we're not talking about the Sabbath day here, but rather taking back Sunday, before we talk your 44 today, I think it's just so super important to consider why Sunday even matters. And I would say, to go back to what we just read, for the same reason that the Sabbath day mattered, and Nehemiah made a big deal of it. It's a big deal. It's the Lord's day. You know, as we go back to the early church, what we find in places like Acts chapter 20 and verse 7, that on the first day of the week, they gathered together to worship, to remember the Lord's life and his death and his burial and his resurrection through the Lord's Supper. And while that's only one example, I'd suggest you could go just about anywhere and read and come to the realization that when they gathered together on the first day of the week, these weren't just casual meetups or, I'll go today, or nah, not today kind of attitudes. It was a deliberate, devoted act of setting that day aside and apart, and it being a sacred time to be in God's presence and be in fellowship with one another. And in some cases, not just for those who don't go or don't decide to go and gather on the first day of the week. As we see in 1 Corinthians 11, sometimes the attitudes can enter into the heart of those that are there and do decide to gather together for worship. And so here's really the question of the day. How do we take back Sunday? Or better yet, how do you take it back? To which most of us would answer that and just say, well, just go to church. And while I'm guilty as charged of doing that once or twice in my life and just saying go to church, I wish that was the answer to all of this, but it's not. Because in some cases, the very attitude that we find in the world around us about this day can also creep into the life of the believer that does gather on the first day of the week. Again, back to 1 Corinthians 11, that situation where Paul addresses the church at Corinth and he reprimands the people for their attitude towards the Lord's Supper when they met together. So the way to take back Sunday or make Sunday sacred again isn't just a go to church and go check that box. And I would say I believe that as well, because in a sense, for so many out there that do go to church, it's just another thing on the calendar. It's just another box to check, another thing to do, which, okay, no problem there. Not saying it's bad. I mean, it would be super cool if every church building across this entire nation was packed with people. But what would it mean, really, to go just to go? So let's go here for the first part of your 44. How do you take back Sunday? Because with all these other things out there competing for what should be at the heart and the foundation of every week, our worship, like first and foremost, I'd say the only way to take back Sunday is to intentionally decide and be devoted to it being a priority. Like what's super confusing in how we've lost Sunday to begin with is that unlike everything else that competes for Sunday's time, like for example, my daughter does play travel soccer, but did you know? I have no earthly idea what her schedule will look like when it starts back in the fall. But I'll tell you what, Megan and I will do when that schedule does come out. We'll mark dates, we'll mark times, we'll set the locations and where we're going. We'll make a plan to get her there. And so if I can do it with that, which is unknown and far off, how is it I cannot do it with what is known? I'm devoted to that is unknown, but I can't be devoted to this, because the one and only thing that I can absolutely, positively, prioritizely, I know that's not a word, but whatever, what I can absolutely, positively mark on my calendar is Sunday. The first day of the week, the first day of every week, the day after Saturday. And it's so very obvious that in the early church, it was a priority. It was a big deal. All else was blocked off and blocked out because that day was the Lord's. Which, I mean, if we go all the way back to the beginning when the church began, this was in our daily Bible reading this week, Acts 2. Listen to some of these words here, most especially the first part with the early church. Verse 42, they were continually devoting themselves to the apostles' teaching. You hear that like I did? You see this word devotion, and it's all over. On down through the end of the chapter, we see words like fellowship, and they're together, and they're praising God, and they're glad. There's a sincerity in heart. Like, I don't know. This is that moment that we need to internally reflect and check on ourselves. Like, let's just take that word devotion as the first part of our 44. What does that look like for you and for your house? Is it kind of devoted? Is it not devoted? Or is it like these that weren't just devoted, but they were all in? The second part of your 44, this may be the part we need the most because, again, that devotion thing is tough. If you've already devoted your life to finding the party on the weekend or to NFL football or World Cup soccer for 12-year-olds. I'm not saying it's too late to change that, but habits are really hard to break. So here's number 2, and maybe this will help, because taking back Sunday is not just about legalism or checking boxes. It's about our hearts. And so when we decide to set aside Sunday, what we're saying is, God, you are first. You're the best part of every week, and you are the foundation of the rest of my week. And no matter what else is going on out there, I'm going to press pause on those things and come and worship you. And I think you'll like this one here in Isaiah 58, beginning there in verse 13, where God promises, again, back to the Sabbath, he promises this day to keep and to hold is holy and sacred. And should you do that and press pause on all those other things, man, there's some promises there. There's some positives, some very good things to come. So Isaiah 58, beginning in verse 13, if because of the Sabbath you turn your foot from doing your own pleasure on my holy day and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy day of the Lord honorable, listen to this, and you honor it, desisting from your own ways, from seeking your own pleasure and speaking your own word, then, here it is, you will take delight in the Lord. And I will make you ride on the heights of the earth, and I will feed you with the heritage of Jacob your father, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken. I hope you catch that. To go back to the very beginning with that Facebook post I came across in the last line of it, Sunday is not a break from your week. It's the foundation of it. If you keep ignoring it and doing you, you'll see everything else continue to fall apart. Or you can do what God has desired man to do from the very beginning. Put aside your own pleasure, move away from your own ways, from seeking your own pleasure and your will, and take delight in the Lord, and he will make you ride on higher highs than you've ever gone before. Here as we close, man, like I said at the beginning, I hope today's episode either convicts you to change and to take back Sunday for yourself and give that day back to the Lord, or it reaffirms what you're doing already and God moves you to even higher highs and feeds you fuller than you've ever been before. But let me just say, none of this is easy. Whether you've made a habit of the first day not being the Lord's day, or you've made the first day the Lord's day by your attendance but not your heart nor your devotion to him, it's hard to make those changes. It requires saying no to some things, but the reward is worth it. A deeper connection with our Creator, a refreshed spirit, a stronger faith in him. Taking back Sunday is or should become our weekly reminder that we are not defined by our to-do lists or by that of our kids' to-do lists that are out there in the world, that is everywhere, but that we are defined by our identity in Christ. So let me ask you here as we close, what is yours? Have you allowed the cares of the world and desire for self, maybe even deceitfulness of riches, to choke out the importance of the first day of the week? Is it just another day to you? Or is it everything it should be, and that is the Lord's Day? Thank you guys so much for listening today. I love you, and until next week.